Hey everyone, Kareem right here, and today I have the pleasure to interview Mark Washo, who is the founding partner at Flower City Union. Flower City Union is an American professional soccer team based in Rochester, New York, in the United States, which competes in the National Independent Soccer Association League, which is a third-tier professional soccer league in the U.S. Mark, thank you for taking the time for joining us today. How's it going?
Good. Hello, Kareem. Thank you for the opportunity, and it's always fun to talk soccer and soccer business. So, looking forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Absolutely, likewise. So, can we just tap into how you got involved into the beautiful game? Did you play? Um, yeah,
Yeah, it's a little bit of an interesting story because I am one of four brothers, and I'm the only one who actually didn't play soccer in high school or any kind of significant level. I did play a little bit of youth soccer, but so that's why it's kind of weird that I'm the one that went on to this really long career in professional soccer. But I basically got involved more on the business side way back in the early '90s when the U.S. The World Cup was here in America back in '94. Kind of dates me a little bit, I suppose. But back then, I had some previous experience with Bison baseball, and I also worked in the NBA, Washington Wizards. They were the Bullets back then. And when Major League Soccer started back in 1995, leading into the inaugural season in '96, I was reading all about it. I happened to work for a company called Budget Rent-A-Car, who everybody knows. We were the worldwide sponsor of the World Cup. I happened to be the embassy representative, so I was kind of the most popular guy for a couple of months when the World Cup came to DC. And I had never seen the passion and the power of the fans, and I was really blown away by the experience. And then lo and behold, learned Major League Soccer was launching, and got in on the ground floor more or less. I think I was employee number 5 or 6 with DC United way back when Major League Soccer had first launched. So it was a combination of being involved in professional sports, getting exposed to the World Cup, and happened to be in the right place, right time, I suppose, and got my foot right in the door. And who knew? Almost 30 years later, I'd be sitting here talking to somebody like yourself on a soccer podcast about another soccer club that I'm involved with, Flower City Union. So that's as quick of the backstory as I can make that one for sure.
absolutely. In a nutshell, um, you mentioned a lot of great experience on the business side that you've had that a lot of people don't get to have. World Cup, NBA. How has that helped you transition to the ownership side of things with Flower City Union?
Yeah, I think everything that's happened in my professional sports career, because it is broader than just soccer in general, and then even the experiences that I've had outside of sports. I mean, I even mentioned working with Budget Rent-A-Car for a year and a half, and even before all of that, I worked in basically I was a life insurance kind of life and disability insurance sales. I was called a marketing apprentice, but that was a glorified title for actually insurance salesman. And I look back, and I often look at the first year and a half when I was just working in an area that I didn't really like that much, but those fundamental sales, business development, marketing skills, when I did get into the sports industry, translated extremely well, and and then I use that as the building block for all the opportunities that I had in professional soccer. And it was interesting because the game did grow. It grew and it expanded, and new stadiums got built. So I again never envisioned or anticipated at the time that soccer would continue to explode like it has, in America. So every club I've been to, every team I've been to, where I've been involved in the day-to-day business operations, as I still am, even though I'm a an owner of this club and helped found this club, basically founded it. I'm still very involved at this moment in the day-to-day business operations. And a club like this, where you're building it from the ground up with very limited resources, both financially as well as human resource. We're digging deep into the toolkit, as the saying goes, into the history of everything to try to accelerate things and come up with best practices. So every experience becomes a building block for the next one, and hopefully try to harness that and utilize that for the endeavor and experience that I'm in right now.
Absolutely. You mentioned the NBA. You mentioned being in the early stages of the MLS, and being a part of the World Cup. Um, having all these different experiences and not only in one sport, why did you, tend to focus more so on soccer and then getting uh, in on the ownership side of things for soccer?
That's a good question. I think really when it came to sports in general, it really was the growth of Major League Soccer. I mean, it really was. It was, and the other thing is when you're in the sports industry, and especially with MLS clubs, especially back in the early days, you're only talking about at the time, maybe front offices that had 25, 30, 40 people, maybe. Obviously, those, if you look at an MLS front office at the moment, a little bit bigger. I mean, when I was with Chicago Fire, back even in 2010 2011 timeframe, we had a pretty large front office, and we were running an entire 20,000 seat stadium, soccer specific stadium. So we had really big staff. So it's one of those things that just again, you learn and you build, and I think soccer just happened to be exploding in America, and there's only limited opportunities sometimes to advance your career, so you have to look at moving to new markets, and it just so happened that Major League Soccer had growth opportunities, and with my history and background, and then kind of being part of DC United as one of the story clubs and the club that had a lot of success early on. I think I became pretty marketable, at the time, and I did look. I had opportunities for sure to get in back into the NBA. Looked at opportunities across a lot of them: Major League Baseball, NASCAR, NFL, XFL, USFL, you name it. It just felt like the opportunities and the timing seemed to always be right for soccer. I even with my agency right now, Freedom Sports Entertainment, that I've had now for maybe 12 years or so. At a period of time, I got really heavily involved in college athletics. That was when I started the agency. I was involved with pro soccer teams, but then it kind of transitioned into college athletics. But then it became more broad in the sports industry. But even with pro soccer, everything that a pro soccer team needs is pretty transferable to anything that any professional sports organization needs, or college athletics were at the time, were trying to mimic a lot of the things that professional teams were doing, especially in revenue and business and revenue generation and business development, ticket sales and sponsorship. So they were looking to guys like myself that had the pro sports background to say, hey, teach us how you do this, how you generate revenue in the college athletics world, where historically they hadn't focused on it that much, and or mostly outsource it versus keeping it in house. So anyway, that's kind of, I think the short answer is it's opportunities, and Major League Soccer continued to grow. Doors were opening, progression opportunities happened, new stadiums were getting built, and that's how I was able to kind of stay in the sport of soccer.
Absolutely. You know, I've heard before, 23 years ago, the question was, would soccer survive 23 years later? It has. And now we got Messi in the US playing for Inter Miami, the 2026 World Cup coming up, MLS franchise fee being 500 million. This will trickle down to all the other leagues. Why the question I'm leading towards is, why did you choose to um, you know, launch a team in the NISA League, National Independent Soccer Association?
Yeah, yeah. So if I may, a brief comment on what you just said there is that first and foremost, back when we launched Major League Soccer, and literally the first 5, 7, 8 years, even, we literally used to sit around those conference room tables, or after the meetings were over at the bar, having a beer with each other, and the conversation was always, imagine when these young kids that are all playing soccer, become parents of their own, and they start having kids of their own, they start having discretionary income of their own. Imagine if we could lure owners that have the financial wherewithal and capacity to support it. Imagine if we could build soccer specific stadiums, because mind you, back then we were all playing in NFL stadiums mostly, and sometimes old NFL stadiums that were abandoned like RFK, for example, or what happened in Dallas. So yeah, I mean, we never. I mean, it was just it was a pipe dream. It was a what if. It was a can you imagine if. And there was always the doubt, even though we all believed, that it would be the outcome. But to see it come to fruition is something that is just pretty incredible. And if we had a crystal ball back then, it would have been a lot easier, I think. And then even just with these franchise fees, you just mentioned 500 million. I mean, back in 2009, 2010, I was part of a group that helped AEG sell Chicago Fire for 38 million, which at the time was a record franchise sale for any Major League Soccer club to a private equity firm in California. That gentleman, that entity, since sold it, for 380 million. Fast forward 11 years later, so the idea that it's 500 million is incredible. To hear you say that as well, and again, mystifying and shocking, but at the same time, we all believed it. We all believed that would be the case. So anyway, I just want to touch on that because I just wanted to comment because that's kind of the way it occurred. But to answer your question specifically about Flower City Union and why NISA, I was I was brought in to be the chief business officer of the Rochester Rhinos back between late 15 into 2018. After 2 years, I saw a lot of growth with our club, in attendance mostly, in the way our community was embracing us, in the way our activations were happening at the stadium. It used to be called Soccer Town USA here in Rochester, and somebody like myself, I grew up here as a kid. I left for 26 plus years, and I had a chance to come back and try to revitalize the history, the glory days of the Rhinos back when they won the U.S. Open Cup and things like that. And unfortunately, a lot of external circumstances, especially with our ownership, the city, the league we were in, uh, we had a different story, I guess, that got told publicly that we were this sinking ship, that nobody cared about soccer in Rochester. And I was the guy in the middle of it, living and breathing it. And I had, literal P&Ls, from 2016 to 2017 to show that we weren't a sinking ship, that we were growing our business, that we had reduced our operating losses, that everything was upticking, expenses were getting cut, and we were looking, but we were pointing in the right direction. So to have that I felt like what I tell people is it was a snowball kind of heading down a hill, and we were picking up momentum, and then we hit a brick wall. Versus the idea that we were just, again, a ship that was sinking. And again, there was a lot of external factors that went into why that didn't continue. So for me, and when 2018 and 19 rolled around, I kind of thought maybe, hey, the soccer thing was a good idea, but it was always nagging at me. It was always bothering me that I was like, this community has a good history here. There's people that care. Everywhere I went, people were asking, "Hey, Mark, what's going on with the Rhinos? Hey, Mark, when are the Rhinos coming back? Hey, Mark, what's going on with professional soccer in Rochester?" It's like it wouldn't leave me no matter where I went, and I kept saying, "Well, why don't we have, like, we need to have professional soccer here?" So, and then that led into the idea that a league like NISA was forming. COVID was right in the middle of it all, so that was very challenging, as you can imagine. And then it just started looking like a business model that could be attainable, that we could raise enough capital for, and that we can find some investors and get more community engagement and support. So it was those factors that kind of really went into the idea that, hey, we got maybe a different model now, a different league that could lend towards success. And I was able to I was able to do it. I was able to find some investors. It was one investor at the time. It turned into two, and then it turned into one again. It's a little bit of a checkered history with the club, but current moment we have two investors. We're building momentum. This year is going a lot better than last year. We had our record crowd last Saturday, August 5th. And when you have crowds like that and you have people in the building, then people start to notice. And we're starting to get more phone calls now, and sponsors are starting to, people that wouldn't return our emails or phone calls are emailing us back and saying, "Hey, we want to come to a game and we want to check out a match." And, we definitely got some positive momentum. So again, obviously it's a, more in-depth story than that, but the genesis is I felt like we had momentum. I felt like there was a market here. It went away for a number of years. A league like NISA created an opportunity for us to get back into professional soccer. Kind of the perfect storm hit. We did have a sport management program that was connected to it as well, and that was another part of our decision to kind of move forward. That program hasn't continued at this moment, but it was kind of a little bit of the convergence of the perfect storm, I guess. And then we jumped in Lake Ontario again, jumped in the lake, or the pond, as the saying goes, and honestly started swimming. And that's kind of the summary of the story of how we got Flower City Union kind of going.
Yeah, and I want to take the time to thank you for all the work that you did at Major League Soccer, and where Major League Soccer is today is huge. So I wish I could go back in time and see that history and learn more about that because MLS set the pathway and it survived. So the work that you guys have done doesn't go unnoticed, and it's amazing work that you guys have done.
Oh, Kareem, I appreciate you saying that. Thank you, because look, there's a lot of people like myself. There's not many of us, first of all, still kind of, I guess, kicking around the game. No, no pun intended on that. But there is a core group of people that really, really felt like we took Major League Soccer on our back, and we lived and breathed it and sacrificed a lot, and really try to be, we knew we were pioneers and trailblazing, and it's great to see how the growth and the momentum and how much it's exploded, and that's very, very gratifying, and very. But we also feel like, man, some of the people involved present day have no idea the heavy lift and the and the hard work and the grind and all those things that we say that went into building this, Major League Soccer. And not that any of us expect medals or anything, or statues, of course, but it's nice, to hear somebody like yourself, say that and recognize it, because yeah, that's all. We just feel like, hey, it's nice to be acknowledged, and nice for people to, look back and say, wow, there was a history. There were a lot of people that were involved, people that really just, really, like I said, put their heart and soul into it, and then to see the payoff now is really great. Which, by the way, is a reason why when I went to launch Flower City Union, and by no stretch do I want to misrepresent and say that I'm, some big, financial investor in this club as a partner, as a part owner, but I never had equity in any of these teams or these projects or these clubs. And I was even part of the early days of the Washington Spirit, the women's pro league, and I did finally get a nice championship ring and a medal, courtesy of the former owner, who was kind enough to honor, give me one, as recognizing my participation. But I wasn't an equity partner. So when that club sold for 38 million, a couple of years ago, I'm like, even if I had a nice little sliver of that, would have been nice. And so this one, when I was talking to investors and talking to owners, potential, people, I was like, look, I'm going to put a lot of sweat equity in this. I'm going to put a lot of my, my knowledge and my soccer history. Hopefully, I have a good reputation still in Rochester, because we always try to do things the right way. I was like, I wanted to make sure I carved out an equity piece for myself to be part of it. So the group that I'm with current moment, saw the vision, saw the passion, and they said, hey, Mark, this makes sense, at this stage of not only my career, but what I've brought to the table. And that business plan in my briefcase that I talk about, really wouldn't have happened, so if I were, weren't involved. So it's nice that I'm in a position now where I do have that ownership, equity piece, and I'm a minority partner in this project. So that's nice to see, as it kind of comes full circle a little bit.
Yeah, totally understand that. That exchange in value is always important, especially in equity. It could be a big difference. So totally understand where you're coming from in that regards, and now where you are in that position from experience, it all makes sense, and it's only going to grow regardless. Uh, y- when was Flower City Union founded?
So technically, it was founded pretty much. Well, the idea and the general concept was back in 2019. My very first meeting with NISA was in 2020 at the annual coaches convention. I believe we were in Baltimore at the time. It was either Baltimore or Philadelphia. That's where I met Josh Pruch and his father John, who's the commissioner of NISA. That is when I got more information about the reality of the league. Then, of course, COVID hit. So during that time, we were trying to find the investors. We had the relationship with St. John Fisher, which is a sport management program here in Rochester, which they're part of the history of Flower City as much as anybody. Even though they made the strategic decision not to continue their master's program, that was really the key piece as to why we're not as embedded anymore, even though we do still work with their students, and we have a couple players on our team that went to St. John Fisher. So there still is a looser affiliation, but we decided in 2020. We made our first application late 2020. Then it led into 21. We finally announced the fact that we had applied to NISA. We took a year to kind of build, create the brand, engage with the community. We did a lot. We did like a 6-month deep dive, Kareem, into interviewing, everybody from the soccer community, the business community, to say, hey, what should this club be? What should this club be called? What's the cresting? What do the colors look like? And that helped us shape Flower City Union. We engaged with Chris Payne, who's a soccer designer. Done a lot of great work with a lot of great soccer brands, not only here in America but overseas. And then, so by the time we finally kicked the ball in 2022, we had been around for probably a year and a half, and the concept was probably 2 years old, and so yeah, that's kind of the history, and it was good to get that first year under our belt, and we learned a lot, and it really helped us kind of position ourselves as we turn the corner into this season. That stated, as you can imagine, with a league like NISA, and I guess the way to say it is things are always kind of fluid, and even with our organization, I mean, to be honest, we have a fan ownership campaign. We had to merge and create a new entity when we brought in our new investor and partner into the equation. So we had to relaunch our fan ownership campaign. So there's been a lot of things that have transpired, but I guess we've technically been around since pretty much definitely 2021, and you could even argue going back to that first NISA meeting, back in 2020. So yeah, it's pretty crazy when you reflect back a little bit, as what it takes, to launch something, even at the Division III professional soccer level. And I'm glad we had that year. I wish we had 2 years, to be honest, to prepare and rev it up and build things the right way. But I see sometimes clubs come in, 2-3 months, and then boom, they hit the ground, they start playing, and that always makes me pause these days and say, wow, you really kind of need that year, season or two build up, to hopefully do it the right way.
Understood. With saying that, what were the takeaways from the first season? What were things that you guys learned?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the takeaways were, well, number one, well, we also had RNYFC in this market at the time. They decided to the former owners of the Rhinos decided to launch a USL. I'm sorry, MLS Next Pro club. So that was a little bit of a challenge and something we had to navigate over. Not anything we could control, but just happened to be in our market. I think we learned that while we had a great brand and a great brand launch, that was very well received by the community, and we had good merchandise and things, that sometimes that hype and that buzz doesn't always translate right away into people wanting to come to your stadium and fans wanting to come. I think we learned that there's a lot of confusion in the Rochester marketplace because of the teams that have come and gone, both professionally as well as amateur. There's some amateur teams here that like everybody, you position yourself in a way that people get confused. Are you professional? Are you amateur? So we had to do a lot of education in that first year that we were a professional club and we weren't amateur, and we had to educate people about NISA and our league. And I think people didn't really understand what the league is, and that it was a national league, and we weren't just playing, a team down the road in Buffalo, for example. We were actually playing teams from California and Chattanooga and Michigan and things. So it was just a lot of education and awareness, and I think we learned that yeah, we learned that it's going to be yeah, I guess for us it was kind of like, hey, we knew what the numbers looked like in 2017 from the fans and the fan base and the ticket holders. You can't just flip a switch and all those people are going to come running back over to this new organization. You are a new organization, you got to start from scratch, and then people, you're an unknown, even though we had a nice brand and everything. It's just people want to know that you're serious and that you're here to stay. And what's this organization going to be? Are they going to come and go like all the rest of the soccer teams here? Like, yeah, just so we had to overcome a lot of skepticism. So yeah, we learned a lot of those things. We learned a lot about getting back into that stadium that we're playing in. Great stadium, fantastic. Just new mayor in our city, new people operating the facility. So we had to learn all those things, and it was a little difficult for me personally because I kind of kept reflecting back to the 2017 where we had sponsor signs everywhere. We had a beer garden, we had a spirits garden, we had activations galore every game, hospitality tents, and then you go to basically a blank stadium again. We had to start all over again from scratch. So that was challenging as well, for sure. Anyway, so that's what we learned. A lot of those things, the little things.
Yeah.
Actually, reminiscent of 1996 Major League Soccer in a lot of ways, candidly.
Mhm. Yeah, it seems like one of the big problems with, leasing a stadium that you have to deal with the management of that stadium and not being having the flexibility to do what you want to do. Yeah,
Yeah,
seems
and that was a little different for us for us and myself in that back in 17, 16, we operated the stadium. So the Rhinos had the contract to operate and run the facility, and we could book it and we could sell it and we could do everything we wanted. This go around, we're just a tenant, and the city of Rochester is the operator. So yeah, we had to learn how to. Now I've had those experiences myself professionally, both with RFK Stadium and then Giant Stadium, which is now MetLife Stadium in New York, where again our team was just we were a tenant, we are not the stadium operator. When I got to Toyota Park in Chicago, we did become the operator again. So that's a different world. That's a nice world. That's a better world to be in, quite frankly, when you can control everything. And but at the same time, look, you gotta learn how to work with your venue, and they've actually been the city of Rochester has been great to work with. They honestly really have. They've been very flexible. They've been accommodating. Yeah, they've been good to work with. It's been very good. So one step away, if we were to operate it, it'd be better. But it's actually a pretty darn good relationship at this moment. It's going pretty well.
yeah. No, that's really good to hear. If you could go back in time to the beginning, what would you do differently?
With Flower City Union,
Yeah.
or in general, with
Whichever one you prefer to answer.
no, it's funny. In general, people say, sometimes you reflect back on a pro sports career, and there's so many amazing moments. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. But like any profession, you make a lot of sacrifices, right? A lot of nights, a lot of weekends, a lot of holidays when you're working, game days, and everybody's at the beach or they're at the lake, driving their boats around, and you're putting your suit on and going to the stadium, but I think with Flower City Union, if we could do that, I think there's not a lot we would change. I think, in the way we kind of went about things, I think the thing that really has hindered us has just been, and again, this no disrespect to anybody involved with our organization, just, it's the realities of, the capital commitments that we had, and the owners that we have and the investors we have. They're incredible. They're some of the best owners I've ever worked with historically. Um, but everybody, financially, there's limitations, based on other commitments that they have, other business endeavors. It's not an infinite, amount of capital and funding, which is to be expected, 100%. And I just think that our organization, if we were to truly, really be able to kind of really go at it and build it and have the time required and the resources, it would be better if we had, again, maybe another year where we didn't play professional, and maybe we played amateur. Like, I think we launched in the right timing. I think maybe we could have used a year in amateur where we could have, built our brand and kind of built our sponsorship base, built our capital base, built our ticket base, got better prepared financially, I think, as a backing kind of the foundation, and then launched into pro. If we were to do it over again, maybe that strategy would have been a little better. Then again, on the flip side, sometimes, and one of our owners has this thought, hey, sometimes you got to get going and you got to differentiate and show that you are professional and not amateur. Because if you're amateur, maybe you end up being just like the other amateur clubs in the market. So that makes it tougher to differentiate, over time. So who knows, right? We would never know how that would have gone. But I guess if you were to say, if we were to do it over, could we have done that a little differently? The answer could be possibly. That's all.
Understood. With
It's a good
saying that,
question.
correct me if I'm wrong. You guys have both a men's and women's professional team, but do you guys have a youth system, a path to pro yet implemented from U4 to U19 in place that's generating revenue?
Yeah. So to clarify, we do have a men's professional team. However, we don't have a women's professional team. We have a women's amateur club that we did launch for the reasons I just mentioned about the men's club. Is we felt like we wanted to get involved in the women's game. We were excited to launch Flower City 1872. It pays homage to Susan B. Anthony, who's an iconic figure here in Rochester, as the first female person to ever vote. And in America. So a little bit of it, she's a trailblazer clearly. So, but again, we're not ready to go pro yet. Now, the good thing on the women's side is there's a lot of professional leagues that are starting to either creep up or start up or on the horizon. So we feel good about the future where women's soccer can go here in Rochester, but we want to do it when we're ready. Um, so, uh, so yeah, yeah, we've been on the youth side. We are not operating. We don't really have a pathway to pros at this point. Well, we have two affiliations with two amateur clubs. One is called Soda City. They're down in Columbia, South Carolina. We have a club partnership with them. Actually, we've got one of their players in camp this training with us this week. We were supposed to bring two or three. We might bring them in a couple weeks. Share a lot of best practices. Our head coach has been down there. We have another amateur club here called Smugtown. Those are affiliations where we can use their trialists and guest players to train with our team. They can't play in our games, obviously, because they're amateur. And for us, we really want to go embark on club neutral player development. Rochester is a town where there's a lot of travel teams. There's a lot of great organizations like an Empire United. I'm sorry, they're called RMIFC now, like Doug Miller, who has an academy, several others. So we don't really want to get in that space where we're competing. However, we do want to get into the club neutral player development where our coaches and our players can teach and train and coach fundamentals and skills. And so we actually just launched one of our first ones this summer with Dick's Sporting Goods as our partner. We sold the camp out. It's a week-long camp, 3 hours a day. We sold it out in less than 24 hours.
How many players?
I'm sorry?
How many players?
30 players, 30 players. And then we're doing it with the women's team. That'll be another 30 players on the women's side. So 60 kids in a week span getting coached by our players and coaches. It was just show that the market's there for us. And this is definitely a growth opportunity for us to get into for sure.
Absolutely. How long is it going to be? You said 1 week?
The first one's a week camp. Yeah. So 1 week for the men and then a week later, a week for the women.
Yeah. There was we'll talk about this offline. I know we're coming up here on time. I'll just ask this last question, and then I want to end off with some fun questions.
Yeah.
Where do you see, the club in the next 2.5 years, 2026 World Cup? What do you see that doing for your club?
Well, it's interesting. You mentioned the 2026 World Cup. Well, not interesting because everybody knows it's on the horizon. That is one of the motivations as well. I think when you asked what was the motivation to launch, and when I was trying to tell the story of Flower City Union, is 2026. My view, as much as soccer is really gained a stronghold here in America, that could be the tipping point of all tipping points where the floodgates truly can open, where everybody that maybe still isn't that aware of soccer becomes way more aware. Hopefully the U.S. national team continues to progress and grow and puts on a great performance during that World Cup. But I mean, look, if we do things in the right way, we're drawing good, healthy crowds. We've got a sustainable business model. We're part of the fabric of the Rochester community, where people say, when people say Flower City Union, instead a lot of them saying, wait, what the heck is that? Or, oh, we have a pro team. They're like, oh yeah, Flower City Union, that's our club. That's the club for our city, club for our community. And, by then 26, who knows, maybe we get to elevate, end up in Division 2. I don't know if we ever get to a place where this becomes a major league soccer market, like, at one time, was certainly just high up on the list of discussion, and Rochester was high up on the expansion list. So you never know, right? You don't know where this can go. Rochester as a mid-major city is growing. A lot of people are exiting the big cities like, New York and Chicago and LA and wanting to come to smaller mid-major markets. So I guess we don't know, but I guess the hope would be we're part of the fabric of the community. We've been accepted. We've been embraced. People are enjoying being part of our culture and what we got going on, and everybody knows who we are instead of the other way around at this moment. And we're thriving. And then 2026, who knows? The sky's the limit, really, quite frankly, for a club like this. So that's part of the push, and that's part of why we want to stay involved, and why we think there could be some return. I mentioned the Chicago Fire story. Maybe guys like myself or the other investors that have been doing this for 5-6 years at that point might say, all right, we'll pass the baton, let somebody else, like yourself, Kareem, pass the torch, take it over, and take it to bigger and better. That'd be great. So
Yeah,
maybe we're penning a deal in 4 years time. So
absolutely.
you know,
I
never
I
know.
know we're here on time. Did you have a few extra
Yeah,
minutes?
yeah, no, yeah, we're good. I'm good to about 6:25. If that's okay. Where I need to go next is only 5 minutes down the road, so I'm okay.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I'll just go with this last question. We'll make it quick. Um, would you say it's easier for you guys to raise capital now, in regards from before pitching a vision? Now you guys have more tangible assets in place.
Yeah, great point. So what I've been telling people, and including our current camp, that we're in, is that our story now is so much more attractive and so much better and stronger than our story was 6 months ago, than it was 6 months before that, and then it was even 6 months before that. When I say it was a business plan in a briefcase, walking around the city trying to talk to anybody that would listen. The fact that we've got we're going to be 2 seasons almost under our belt now. We figured some things out on the financial side, especially on the expense side. We've got we're hitting some stride, we're getting better crowds, sponsors are starting to pick up. Like, the momentum's there, the foundation's there, the branding has been established. We, like you said, we've learned a lot of things from that first year. We're adding things into our stadium every match now, almost, little pieces here and there. Yeah, I think, and look, we do need to raise more capital if we're gonna continue to grow this club. And I think our investor capital story now is greater than, for sure, where we've been at any point. And to me, that makes us way more attractive, way more exciting. And anybody that wants to get involved in the game and knows the history of soccer in Rochester, and looks around the greater landscape of the United States, and you look at a city like Rochester with a great soccer specific stadium right in the middle of downtown, we're a pretty exciting proposition, I believe, and we all believe that. And so therefore, I think our conversations in our future is much brighter now, because of what we've built to this point, 100%. So um, and we hope some other people that might be listening to your podcast agree, and then maybe we have great meaningful conversations, and exciting outcomes could come, from it. So I think the answer is 100% without question. We're way more attractive now. We've done a lot of the nitty gritty, the roll up your sleeves. A lot more to be done, clearly, but yeah, I think we're a way more exciting proposition at this moment.
Absolutely. Just to end off here on the fun questions, I got six fun ones, but they're speed
Sure.
questions, so you got to answer
That's
them super fast.
Yeah, no worries. We're good. Thank you.
Okay, let's do it. What's your favorite sport besides soccer?
I would have to say football. NFL and college football for sure. Yeah. My daughter goes to South Carolina now, so I become a big Gamecocks fan all of a sudden. And I've always been a Colts fan ever since I was a kid. Baltimore Orioles were the farm team. The Red Wings were the farm team of the Orioles, so that's why I'm a Colts fan.
Nice. What about your favorite? Do you have a favorite soccer team?
That's a hard one. It's weird. I'm not like this big EPL guy or anything. I mean,
Flower
if I
City Union.
Yeah, no, Flower City Union, of course. The club I have the most affinity to by far is still DC United.
See
Even
ya.
though I work for Metro Stars, well, Red Bull New York, even though I work for Chicago Fire, no disrespect to those two teams, just DC United has that special place for me early in my career, starting off. So many great relationships I still have to present day. That's the club I'm the most fond of. And if you were to say, hey, which club, it's that. If I were to pick a club overseas, I'd lean towards Chelsea for no other reason than we had them in the very first All Star game, in the very one of the first matches ever at Toyota Park that I was personally involved with, and I got to know that club pretty well during that time. Um, yeah, so those would be I love a couple. I love SC Barcelona. I like La Liga. So, but anyway, those are the clubs if I had to pick them.
What
So,
ab- what about favorite player?
oh, wow, wow, wow. Okay, man, that's hard for me because I have a lot of relationships with some of them. So if I say anybody domestically, I might offend somebody else. I don't know. Uh, I mean, look, wow, that's a hard one. I mean, look, everybody, gotta love what Messi does, right? You said he was going to be quick.
Yeah.
um, Yeah, I think look, Beckham was great for our league when he came into Major League Soccer. So I have an affinity for Beckham. Uh, I love Messi, what he does. Again, if I had to pick, internationally, I'd probably go with those two. Domestically, I don't know. There's a whole slew of players that I just respect and admire, and you know, uh, yeah, a lot, both on men's and women's, mind you. I have so many women players that I just have so much respect for. I mean, I would mention Abby Wambach just because I'm from Rochester and we had a nice relationship when I was there. Uh, I'll shout out to Alexi Laws just because I've been texting with him during his World Cup coverage with the women and stuff. But uh, John Harkes, Jeff Agus, man, so many guys. I could list so many. Echeverry, Moreno, like a lot of the classic DC United guys. Too many to list. I don't know. I can't pick one. So,
What about favorite music?
oh, that's easy for me. 100%. I'm a heavy metal. I'm a metalhead. I used to hide behind that, strangely, Kareem, because I felt like metal was a looked down upon kind of music genre of like, why are you this soccer sports executive? You're an executive vice president of the Chicago Fire, and then behind the scenes, I'm throwing on the denim and leather and going to a. Actually, I don't really wear the denim and leather, but actually, my metal buddies tease me because actually, I just went to a metal show last night. I went to go see Pantera and Lamb of God, and they had a bet what I was going to show up wearing: soccer stuff or metal stuff. And I had a little bit of both. I had my Flower City and I had my Judas Priest hat. So, but I met a guy who's a highly successful. He consults with CEOs, highly successful. Has written a book, gets guest speaking engagements all across the country. He's with a McKinsey Group, highly regarded consulting firm. Big metalhead. He's like, Mark, celebrate it, don't hide behind it. He goes, why are you hiding? It's just music, it's what you love. And so that's my passion. And I met a lot of metal guys through soccer because Metallica, the biggest one. I've got a huge history with like James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich because they wanted to meet our DC United players back in the day, and we brought them soccer cleats and jerseys, and I send stuff to the bands a lot. And Maiden's another one, Iron Maiden. I met, they're huge soccer hat fans, so I met a lot of cool metal guys because of the sport of soccer. And a friend of mine who happens to be, his name is Metal Mike. He lives in New Jersey. He's been in tons of bands, and all because of soccer.
Nice.
So yeah, very cool. Soccer and metal, they go together.
I'm a really big house music guy now. Like just the beat.
Oh,
I really like the house music now. Yeah. No,
it's kind of similar. It's a similar vibe, techno house, a little bit of that beat, and then the metal is a little more aggressive. But I will also have to admit, I'm a closet Swiftie. I got two daughters, and I just with them growing up as kids, we listened to them like 80 million times every road trip we ever been on. And then I keep listening, and I went to the Eras tour, and like honestly, as many metal shows as I've been to and rock concerts in my life, put that one up there at probably near the top of the list, if not the top. So I'll admit that I'm a closet Swiftie as well. Swiftie dad, we'll go with that.
what about favorite food?
I will share also that I have had a heart issue within the last 2 years that became very well known to me. So I've changed my food a lot. I'm way more vegetarian, vegan side of things at this moment, more out of health issues than any other belief system. If I had to pick one, though, I'm going to go with Italian. And Indian food's not too far behind it for me. But I love to cook too, and I love experimenting. And so when being forced more into vegetarian and veganism has been a little bit of a challenge for me, but it's healthier, and I feel good because I don't have to affect as many animals anymore. Maybe I do like fish too, though. I'll eat seafood. So, but
I'm glad you're healthy now.
thank you. Yeah,
Like
thank you.
the last one. What's your favorite activity?
I'm an outdoors kind of guy. I love being outdoors. I love to play sports. I'll play any sport pretty much. I'm a big tennis player. I'm actually going to play tonight. That's where I got to go in a little bit. I play soccer. I play flag football. Guys in my old neighborhood play every weekend. I love to bike. I love to canoe, paddleboard, kayak. Catch me outdoors pretty much. Like I don't like being indoors. I don't like when I get stuck
Yeah.
inside. When I had my health issue with my heart, I got stuck inside, and I'm like, I'm the wrong guy to have this happen. Luckily, I've been able to get back to a lot of those activities that I really enjoy. So you'll find me outdoors. Golfing, I'm
Yeah,
terrible at it, but I'll do that. So that's what yeah, that's what I like to do. And then I try to play guitar, but I'm terrible at it. So I'm it's weird. Some people don't have a lot of hobbies, and then like I'm one of those guys that probably has too many, and I can't do them all anyway. So I'm good at a few. I'm not great at any. So, but I like to stay busy and stay active, and you know, catch a soccer game here and there.
yeah,
So one too many soccer games at this point, probably. But yeah, it's just been one of those things. So um, Kareem, I got to tell you, these are great. I enjoy the conversation here, and love to come back maybe one day and maybe spend more time. And,
yeah.
and thank you. You've done a great job. You prepared, obviously, and I got to go back and check some of your other interviews now.
Yeah, for sure. We have a hashtag ownership club ownership podcast playlist on YouTube. So I think
Oh,
that's the one that
nice.
I want to check out, or soccer business that you'd like. But yeah, this is gonna go there as well. And Mark, I appreciate you taking the time. This was great. I definitely want to ask a few more questions offline, and hopefully in the
Yes.
future we'll have you back when you guys sell the club for a few $1 million.
Okay.
I'm super
Sure.
excited.
No, that'd be exciting. No, Kareem, thanks for your time. Yeah, 100%. Want to have a conversation with you offline and after the podcast. And yeah, look forward to future conversations with you. And congratulations and continued success to you and One Soccer Nation. Thank you.
Thank you. You too, Mark. Thank you.
Thanks.